Hello, everybody. I'm super excited to have the legend, Joe McCall. I'm really excited for this because I think there's a ton of opportunity and a ton of value that's going to be given to anyone that sees this. So I actually met Joe McCall probably a year and a half ago. We both spoke at an event in it was Asheville,
Asheville, South
Asheville,
Carolina.
South Carolina. I was in the wrong state. I
Wasn't
didn't know
it
where it
North
was.
Carolina? Asheville.
I don't know. It was right on the border. I think is it north? It doesn't matter.
You
But
know what
we
was funny? I was taking an Uber to get there, and all of a sudden the Uber driver slams on his brakes. We're in the mountains,
yeah.
and he's kind of screams. And I'm like, "What's going on?" And right across the street were a couple bears walking across the street. Couldn't
There's
believe it.
bears.
Yeah, two black bears.
That's crazy. No, it was a beautiful place. It was a great event. I learned a ton, and actually, there was quite a few amazing people that spoke. I felt definitely out of place. And one of the talks that was given was Joe, and I actually learned more from that than any of the other presentations. And what was shared there is lease options. And the reason I brought Joe McCall on and I'm, presenting what he teaches is because I think it's going to make a huge impact in a lot of my students' lives and people that follow me. So the reason I brought him on is we actually did a Facebook Live a couple days ago on the YouTube channel, actually the YouTube Live, and talked about a creative structure that one of our students did and made an absolute fortune on. And he's not the only student that I've seen that's been able to put together some creative structures. And so I was like, well, it's going to happen more and more if the economy continues to trend the direction it's going. And I was like, well, let's bring on the expert himself instead of trying to teach it with what I understand. Let's bring Joe on and talk about it. So can you share with us, your story, kind of your real estate experience and why lease options and what exactly they are?
Yeah. Hey. So I love lease options. It was in 2009 when I quit my job doing lease options. I was working as a civil engineer full time, making good money, 75, 80 grand a year. But I didn't like my job. I felt like I was stuck in a cubicle. And I was just kind of working 7 to 7, right? Whoever came up with 9 to 5 is an idiot. Nobody works 9 to 5, especially when you're, working on big power plants and engineer, and you're a lot more is expected of you. So I would have to be there at 7 and I wouldn't get home till 7. So that was frustrating. And, but I was learning different types of real estate investing. I started wholesaling in 2008. I liked wholesaling because you could make a lot of quick money wholesaling, but I got tired and frustrated with throwing away all these leads that didn't have any equity. So I started asking myself, what could I do with these leads that don't have equity instead of throwing them away? And I'd liked lease options because I could lease a property for a period of time and then buy it. It's a way to control property without owning it. And I'd owned some properties that I was losing at the time to foreclosures and short sales because I was way over leveraged. I had too much debt and I was hemorrhaging cash. And I thought, I don't want to own another property ever again. And so then I started thinking, well, that's why I like wholesaling. I'd rather make a quick nickel than a slow dime, but I'm throwing away these leads. I'm spending a lot of money for these leads. And I thought, well, why can't I do lease options on these? And then I don't want to stay in the middle either. Why don't I wholesale? Why can't I wholesale lease options? And that hit me like, wow, I could just flip it. And so instead of a regular wholesale deal with a cash transaction where you sell that contract to an investor, I'm selling my lease option contract to a tenant buyer, and I'm done and I'm out of the deal. And I thought, this sounds really appealing to me. This is really interesting. So I started doing that. And I stopped doing direct mail because I didn't need to. I got all the leads I could handle for free on Craigslist and Zillow just by contacting landlords. And I started just sending out I started sending out marketing, but then I was getting overwhelmed with responses. So then I just started, my initial texts were just, hey, I saw your rental. You wouldn't be open to maybe a rent to own or at least purchase, would you? That's it. Like I was going, instead of asking them, do you want to sell your house? I was just saying, or instead of saying, we buy houses, we pay cash, we can close in 7 days. I just went straight at it. I said, would you want to do a lease purchase? And if they said yes, I'd call them. And so I started flipping those. And back in 2009, nobody was quitting their job. The economy was falling apart. People were freaking out. And but I was making more money flipping lease options than I was in my full-time job. And so that's when I quit and I started doing them full-time.
That's incredible. So how many lease options do you think you've done to this point?
I don't know.
A lot.
North of 100,
What's
not,
sorry, go ahead. So you've done north of 100?
not hundreds. I've not done hundreds, but I've done well north of 100. I've done a lot of traditional wholesaling deals too.
Yeah.
I've even flipped vacant land. I've done vacant land. So I love doing deals. My main passion right now is doing what we're doing here, talking, teaching, coaching. I'm spending most of my time doing podcasts and creating content and videos and writing books and doing software. I have marketing services company. So we still do deals, but I'm not in day-to-day involved in the deal side of the business. I have people doing that with me and for me. But my main passion, where I'm spending almost all of my time, is the podcast and teaching and helping people. I just get way more out of that. I get way more out of coaching and helping people. You know what I mean?
Oh, I completely understand it. That's why I'm doing what I do.
Yeah.
I definitely probably make more money if I just if I quit trying to coach and just help people, or help my own business do more deals. You said something really interesting though about lease options. You said that there was so many opportunities that you didn't even have to do direct mail. Like you weren't even spending money on marketing. You were just calling like Craigslist and landlords basically.
Yeah. So I was spending at the time, $2, $3, $4 grand a month on direct mail, which, when you're working full-time job and you've got a family, and that's a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't consistent. But I thought, I just was starting testing it. I remember there were some forums and discussion boards at the time, and I saw somebody talk about it. And so I tried it and it worked. And then I thought, this is pretty cool. But I was spending a lot of time going to Craigslist, going to Zillow, getting the phone numbers, putting it into the texting, sending it out. And I thought, I can get a VA to do this. So I got a virtual assistant to do it for me. Right. And then I only started talking to people who would raise their hands. The VA would go out and find the people that were interested for me. They would raise their hands, and then I would call them. And then I got to a point where I was getting too busy. I couldn't handle all of the leads. So I hired a friend of mine who was out of work by choice, kind of semi-retired, but he was a good people person. I said, listen, I'm getting these leads. I can't handle the volume. I'm still working. What if you take these leads for me and work them? And I gave him the script, gave him the contract. And I said, you just get them under contract for me and I will pay you, I think it was 15 or 25% of the deal. So he said, yeah, cool. So he started doing that. And then my next problem became, he's getting too many deals under contract. So I'm thinking, well, I can't sell these properties. What am I going to do? So I hired a realtor to help me market the properties and find tenant buyers. And so by the time I quit and shortly after, I had a VA doing all my marketing. I had a friend taking all the calls and closing them on the phone, usually on the phone. Occasionally he would go to the seller's house. And third, I would have a local realtor do the work of advertising and selling the house for me, finding a tenant buyer.
Right. Well, it sounds like an awesome system. I mean, I have so many questions, Joe. I have questions on how do you find your tenant buyers? I have questions on, how do you, what kind of contract? How do you sell a lease option contract? What are the legalities behind it? How is this market right now similar to the 09, 08 market? Is there going to be more lease options now like there was back then? Yeah. I have all these questions, right? And I want to deep dive all these questions. And I wanted this to kind of be a teaser to what we're going to deep dive during a live webinar next week.
Yes.
So little introduction to that. We're going to really deep dive the system and give a ton of value. Joe's going to deep dive all those things. I have a list of lots of questions. Guys, if you have questions for Joe that you want me to ask during that webinar, comment in the comment section below, and I'll look at those before I jump on next week with Joe. So the link to the webinar is going to be in the show notes. So just click on the link, register for that. You'll get some emails to remind you about it, and we'll see you guys there live. Is there anything else you would like to add, Joe, before we we look forward to seeing you again.
Yeah. So if you're watching this after we do the live webinar, you still click the link down below and it'll take you to the replay or another webinar that's just like it. So if you're watching this before the live webinar, which it's going to be next week, click the button down below, register, but then we'll switch the link after we go live and you can still watch the webinar by clicking the link in the description of the video. But yeah, I love doing the webinars. You know, people get a lot of value out of it. I teach what I'm doing. Basically, I don't hold much back at all. I give away the things that, how I get my marketing, how I do my marketing, how I get my leads for free. I cover that. I talk about how I negotiate with sellers, what I talk to them, how I talk to them, the questions that I ask. I show the contracts that I use. I even give, if you don't want to use my contracts, I show you where you can get some other contracts for super cheap. Then I talk about how to sell and advertise the properties, how to, once you have them under contract, where do you advertise them? How do you advertise them? How to get a realtor to do all that for you and only pay them if they find a buyer for you. And then talk about how to scale the business, how to grow it, the simple systems and tools that you can use to pretty easily make a full-time income on this business. It's really not that hard. I think it's one of the easiest ways to make money in real estate right now, especially as we're coming out of a seller's market into a buyer's market. There's going to be a lot more motivated sellers out there, and all the other investors are out there clamoring for the small pool of motivated sellers with equity. And as their equity starts disappearing too, there's nobody's really doing anything with all of these sellers. They can't sell it with a realtor. Maybe they don't even want to. They don't have enough equity. They don't want to be a long distance landlord. They have 2 mortgage payments. They thought they could sell the house. They couldn't. What are they going to do? There's a ton of Airbnbs coming on the market. Tired landlords who had Airbnbs and they can't, they're hemorrhaging cash every month. You can come to them and say, well, listen, I can get you a fair price for this house if you're willing to wait for it. You know, I can offer you a lot more money than all these other investors that are lowballing you. So I like it because I'm not a good sales guy. I'm not a big negotiator. I've never liked trying to beat a seller down to 50, 60 cents on the dollar. I don't like to go see houses even before the quarantine and the shutdown of everything. I never went to go see houses. I did all of my deals from the house, from the home, all over the country. So not much has changed for me. I work from home. We homeschool our kids. I have 4 kids and they're still at home. So it's just the only thing that's really changed for us is not being able to, go to church and see friends and stuff like that. But I've always worked from home, done deals from all over the world. Literally, we've traveled for months at a time with our family and done deals in the United States while traveling around Europe from an RV for 3 months at a time. So it's a really easy business.
I love it. Well, I'm personally excited to be there. I'm going to be there live with you. I know that I'll learn a ton as well. I've done a couple lease options, but nothing to the extent of what I'm going to learn from Joe. I'm excited to add this to my toolbox. I can guarantee you my acquisition manager is going to be on that call and listening and taking notes and being able to implement it into our business. And so if you're watching this, I would highly suggest watching this, get some gold nuggets and improve your business. So Joe, thanks for giving back. Thank you for being here. And I'm excited to learn from you. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's gonna be fun.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll see you here in a couple days.
All right. See you guys.
Bye-bye.